Hey guys, this is Tanya.
Hi, this is Erin, and welcome to Wicked Psychotherapists.
This week we are diving into a really interesting series on Apple called Silo, which is for our sci-fi dystopian themed kind of lovers of different shows series. It's a little bit different probably than what we normally do, but we really love this. Silo was, something that we both thought was really good. We were really excited about that with the season 2 coming out and everything, and looking forward to season 3, which has not been announced, but is likely, they said, in end of 25 or maybe 26. They don't have a particular date yet. But yeah, so there are so many mental health, psychological, sociological points of view in this. It's a really cool concept. I really loved the setup of how they started to dive into the whole concept of the silo in and of itself, and how we're introduced to it, and just the strangeness of it, the weirdness of, that people are living in this underground structure where it's got different levels, and it's kind of like a
Right,
spiral staircase that kind of carries them up like a big giant
right,
silo, and that different levels kind of indicate different hierarchies, and it's its own self-sustaining like bioverse,
right.
and people are able to, but the thing that we start to notice is people cannot question a lot of the things kind of around the history of the silo, things that happened before the silo's history,
Yeah, the before
the
times.
government,
Yeah.
like anything outside of just surviving within the structure that's set up for them. So I really thought that that was kind of a little bit crazy, and it just was really cool though to see, like, oh wow, there's different levels where there's people that are growing food on this level. There's judicial, which is the governing body, IT, which has a very high standing in the
Yeah.
government, right? Like in traditional IT, information technology. So that kind of says something in and of itself. And we start to learn these different characters and different people that are kind of questioning the status quo. They've been maybe having to live and say, like, okay, these are the rules. This is we look at the collective and the overall good instead of just the individual. But some people, start to kind of question what this is about. The first two characters we meet are the sheriff and his wife of the silo, and they're trying to have a child. And in this system, they have to ask permission, and they have to be chosen in a
hmm
lottery to be able to have a child. And I guess every woman who is of childbearing age has an automatic, like, IUD-esque type something placed inside of them, and it's only when they're chosen that they can have it out and then try for a baby for like a year. Like, they have like only a small amount of time to do it. And it's with this kind of key point that, the wife starts to kind of question things. She starts to hear other things about, oh, they don't want you to have a baby. Of course you're not going to, because ultimately they are not able to get pregnant when they are chosen. And we start to learn a lot of things. That opens up a lot of, this seemingly kind of functioning system has a lot of cracks in it. I mean, talk about, it reflecting reality. It's, there's a lot of other stuff going on behind the scenes, and things that are not, are presented one way but are actually very different in this system. And so yeah, that's really how we get introduced to this very, I just keep thinking of the atmosphere of the silo. It's so dingy and
hmm
gross, and
Well, you figure it's been
but
140 years of people living underground in this, you know, tube silo thing. So it's probably not,
yeah. Ugh.
even though they have things circulated, it's probably not always the cleanest air or the cleanest everything.
I just thought of something. Where do they when people die, where do they
They bury
do
them
they
in the garden.
In the garden.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was
But that
shown.
is
That was shown in one of the episodes where they bury them and they put apples over them and stuff or something, and just kind of use
oh
them
right.
as fertilizer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so they even their your dead body is used to help sustain the silo. Like everything is literally helping to sustain itself. But there's so many themes here that involve like psychology, mental health, because anytime you have a closed system, there's definitely going to be some stuff that comes out of that. But and then we see that the sheriff's wife, she really is questioning, to the point where she ends up ripping out her IUD and, saying she wants to go out, which apparently that declaration, if you say, I want to go outside of the silo, which is just so, um, taboo to say, if you say
yeah,
that, you will be sent
yeah,
outside, which is supposed to be this poisoned air place where you will not, it's known to nobody's ever
yeah.
survived.
You just die. It's
That's what
pretty
they're
much
taught.
it's like a death sentence, and it's one of those things too. Once you say it, you can't say be like, oh, but I was just kidding. So
Yeah.
yeah, so she says it. She ends up going out. A while later, her husband, who's the sheriff, does the same, and he appoints somebody from down beneath in mechanical to become sheriff, and that's where a lot more questioning comes in to the entire show too, the series, and you really start to realize all the psychological ramifications and impact that living in the silo has on all of these people.
Yeah, and that brings into mind like the structure of the hierarchy of the different levels of the silo. The down deep is kind of known as the untouchables, the people that are not looked well upon, but they keep the silo running with the generator. They have like the most important job, yet they are not really respected, and they're kind of
Yeah.
the sheriff decides before he goes out, he wants to appoint Juliet, who becomes she's kind of like the badass, worker in the down deep. She keeps the generator going. She like has a natural sense to the generator.
Yeah.
She like understands its rhythms and everything. And um, she's very much this kind of heroine character, not
Hmm.
a drug,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you know what I mean? She's the
Yeah.
hero.
Yeah. And she's been there since she was 13, so she really knows the lay of the land and how things are made, because the person who kind of was like her pseudo parent since she was 13 is a big tinkerer and likes to build stuff and take things apart, Walker. And so it seems like Juliet has an innate ability to question things and to fix things and just understand things that other people don't really question or want to know how they're made or what is causing people to behave a certain way or different things.
Yeah, and in that we also see within Juliet's personal history, her brother died when she was younger of an illness that really couldn't be helped. It kind of seemed like it maybe involved seizures or something of some sort, and I don't know if it was like epilepsy and maybe there
Mhm.
just wasn't enough known about it. I'm not really sure. Maybe that was made clear, but I'm just not sure of it.
Right.
And then her mom ultimately, was unalived herself because of that factor. And I think from that, Juliet was from a young age very kind of angry, upset, disconnected, but also kind of put her at a different place to not be within the silo in and of itself and kind of move along with what it was expected of her. And I think she
Hmm.
really did question things, and she wanted to be in a place such as the down deep, the lower levels, to be like, okay, I can actually do something that makes a difference, and
Right.
I'm not just kind of, living this lie, what
Yeah.
kind of feels like a lie.
Yeah. And she would have been able to, it's interesting too that she chose to live there because she would have probably had a very, almost like a posh life because her father was a doctor and she would have been up a lot of levels. Like there probably wouldn't have been a lot of difficulty for her, but she chose a very difficult physical life for herself.
Yeah, and she does say something like, when she's working or something like it kind of keeps her mind off of things. Like she kind of can't think of how painful probably losing her brother and her mother really is. And so she
Hmm.
just needs to kind of keep busy. And she stays that way. She goes down at a very young age
Yeah.
and, her dad ultimately sees, okay, maybe she needs this and
Hmm.
gets taken in by Walker. And like you said, Walker is kind of more her mother figure. And she's known in the down deep as somebody who really knows her stuff. She really
Hmm.
is connected with this. She really, I think, needed some truth in that way. She needed
Right.
some, validation that, okay, there's a problem to be fixed and I can come up with a solution
Hmm.
as opposed to all these rules that she was sensing, maybe stuff was just off. This wasn't
Yeah.
supporting life and a good life, in the rest of the
Yeah.
silo.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit more of like realness in the down deep, I think.
And also I was gonna say, like, you probably even have asking her father and going down to mechanical was probably her way of figuring out her grief, and being physical with everything was probably her way of processing things too. Because yeah, she doesn't always have to think about the people she lost, but she's also able to fix something and to stay busy and keep her mind busy. And it does seem like her person that she was kind of stuck with, Walker, is somebody who likes to talk and probably would help her process some of those feelings when she was ready.
Yeah. She definitely has that. She kind of has that tough love approach of kind of like, okay, this is, I'll give you this, but you kind of need to move on to do this too. Like
Right,
kind of that, structure she needed.
right.
And she was pretty real with her. So I
Yeah.
think that's kind of what she needed. But yeah, Juliet is the main protagonist. She's the character that kind of pushes all the bounds, helps us to be able to see that there is a lot of crap that's not being like it's being covered up by the government
Hmm.
of the silo. There are things going on behind the scenes that are keeping people in the dark, keeping them ignorant from questioning the outside. Even the what do you call it? The visor, the thing where they can see outside in the world is possibly they think maybe some sort of, at first they think is or Juliet starts to suspect is maybe some sort of, not a real representation of the
Hmm.
outside world. And
Yeah.
so just kind of even questioning the entire system of things.
Hmm.
And you really see how an isolated society and the fact that they are not allowed to there's no, in the rebellion, they always talk about the rebellion, and how the founders are like heroes, and the rebellion was they burned all the books and the things that they had to, from the world before, um and possession of any relics or things that are from the world before, such as Pez dispenser, which you'll see playing out there, is something that is forbidden. It's something that could get you quote unquote sent to the
Hmm.
outside, which again
Yeah.
is like a death sentence.
Yeah. You don't want to talk about any of the, you don't want to have a relic. You don't want to talk about the time before. You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to question anything, which, again, these people are just supposed to trust, trust their government, trust everyone who's told the stories, or just like, all right, the thing that they always say, like, we don't know why, you know, why we're here. We know, or how long we'll be here. We know we've been here for at least 140 years. So they don't really question it. They just, they're like, all right, we don't have any old books. We don't have this. We're just, from this point on, we'll just keep on doing what we were told.
Yeah, and I think that's a survivalist mentality, right? Of like, this is what we need to kind of keep this sustained, because otherwise there's going to be something that upsets the balance, and this silo depends on balance and the structure. And I think Juliet threatens that for them, and so she becomes kind of a problem. She
Yeah.
discovers a lot of things that because she ultimately does become sheriff and uptake the position of sheriff. By doing so, she kind of has access to some other things that she starts to see, that there are a lot of behind the scene things that are not known to the public, that it starts to kind of, have her questioning more and more, to the point where she is you know, sent to clean outside.
Yeah, they make it up that she says it too. Like they're like, oh. Julia just said she's going to clean. She's like, nope, I never said that. The, the government or whoever, like is a little more powerful. And so it's very easy to convince everybody else that this is what we heard. This is what she said. Yeah.
Yeah, they have total authoritarian rule of kind of like, if we said this, that's what goes. So they're very much a, kind of like, this is our what we say goes, and even to the point of making stuff up, which they do in several instances. They kind of just plant evidence. They do various things that just to be able to say this is how things need to run. So it's very authoritarian. It's not a democracy at all, because I think they allude to this at some point, like a democracy wouldn't work in this because we need this to survive.
Yeah, which is interesting too, because I think the people believe that they're in a democracy, because you'll even see, like, at the very beginning when they're talking to the old mayor before she died. Some people are like, "Oh, mayor, blah blah blah. I voted for you, and I'll vote for you again for the next election." She was mayor for like 40 years. But I don't think that they really have a choice of who is elected or who is chosen. I think it's, they have the illusion that they have that choice.
Yeah. And that's kind of, I think, there's various characters that kind of do question or seek out knowledge. Like Lucas is somebody that Juliet meets, that he's trying to figure out why the stars move, or what's going on, why are they in different places, because there's no knowledge of astronomy.
Yeah,
he doesn't even
know that they're called stars. He's just like the dots or the light.
Yeah, the dots of light, and so there's very much this setup of what people know and what they don't know, and there almost has to be an ignorance on the part of people being kept in the dark in order for this to continue to function. But Juliet and other people, they don't necessarily see it that way, and they want to try and discover this. Juliet ultimately gets sent out to clean because, they said that she wanted to when she did not say that. And she discovers that if she uses a particular type of special tape that can keep out the poison, and we're a little unclear on this. We were talking about this. We weren't sure if it was that the suit was actually the thing that was poisoning people who would go out to clean, or if it's something that keeps something in the atmosphere that keeps the poison from coming through the suit. But Juliet discovers something in that, like, if this special tape, which has like magnetic properties, if this tape is placed on my outfit, then this will actually, or the suit, then I will actually be able to survive this more than likely. So she feels confident, like, oh, I can go and explore and kind of see what's beyond this.
Yeah. And then she has Walker help her get the tape, and then that's a whole thing too. Yeah, it's very interesting too, even the whole, again, going back to the psychological aspect, it's, like, everyone watches too. I think that's kind of interesting. They all watch the person go out into clean or go out. So it's almost like the whole silo is watching this person go to their death, because they know usually people don't make it. It's like maybe they'll make it to the hill and pass out, and they all want them to clean because then they can see what it looks like. It's still crummy and dead. All right, we can't stay, and we can't go out. We have to stay.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that they call it going out to clean, when it's basically saying you have a choice to help out these people, knowing you're going to die. I mean, ultimately, and before Juliet discovered this about the tape, but ultimately everybody would die that would go out and be sent out to clean. And you can help us to clear and watch that and continue to cause this cycle of them understanding that this is the way you have to behave. This is the consequence. Or you can just go ahead and be selfish, like, with the understanding that, people will want for people to see, to be able to see this. And what we figure out is that they are planting a false image in the suit of them. When you walk out, there's kind of this like VR type image that's being projected into the people in the suit that looks like it's blue skies and green grass and birds flying in the air. And so that's why they're cleaning. That's why the people ultimately, like, up until Juliet, had always cleaned, because that's what they're seeing, and they want people to have a clearer image of this. So they
Right.
would clean to be like that. But the motive on the government's part, more than likely, was to be like, watch the consequences of what
Mhm.
happens. Get a
Yeah.
clearer view of that, really see that.
Yeah.
And so that's so psychologically manipulative.
Yeah. So we're gonna let you feel like, okay, this is really beautiful and clean. I see the birds flying. I want everybody to see this. But the government, IT, and everyone still knows they're gonna die in like 5 seconds because either the suit is poisoning them or the air is poisoning them. But we know something, and we know what is really going to be, what it really is going to look like.
Yeah. Yeah. Except for with Juliet, because she figures out something with the tape and using the tape, and she is able to get past that point that everyone literally dies on a hill. They die on a
Yeah,
hill.
she stumbled a little bit, and everyone thought that she was going to die right at that same spot. But then she made it over the hill, and that caused a lot of controversy too, because that hasn't happened before. And then they lose their control because they say once you're outside, we can't control what you're going to do because they know they're usually going to die. But then she makes it over the hill, then it's like, oh no, now it's fear. What do we do? She's left, and now these people are going to start having free thought and being able
Yeah.
to start questioning things. And that can cause its own issue when you're in a sustained unit like the silo.
Yeah, they lost control of that, and that people may want to go out and or open up the what's it called? The vault or the valve
Yeah,
or
I was going to say
whatever.
hatch, but that's lost.
Hatch. Yeah.
I was thinking like, wrong
So it
show.
sounds,
Yeah.
I don't know, that sounds right, whatever it is that kind of ultimately is kind of controlled, so that all that poisonous, quote unquote, poisonous air, we're not really quite sure. We're gonna probably find out in season 3 kind of what this is all
Yeah,
about.
if it is poisonous or if it's just something that they're able to pump just right outside of the silos. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that somehow IT or someone is just pumping poisonous gas just around the silo, but I don't know.
That's what I had thought. It was either coming from the uniform or, yeah, around the, like, the perimeter, because they all kind of seem to die around the same time,
Yeah.
and at the same point, but before Juliet. I was just thinking of something that I'm wondering if Juliet she has a different character. She questions things because she actually changed her course in the silo. Like, I think she was supposed to, had she stayed with her father and had that kind of posh life, she maybe would have not had any reason to question it. But I think she kind of felt like there is something more. There's something, like, she was able to say, I need to live a life where I can question this.
Yeah.
And I think that's really telling and symbolic of people living inside of, controlled or authoritarian spaces, governments, things like that, in order to be kind of considered like a rebel, you have to almost be made into an enemy. And that's kind of formed in a different way,
Yeah.
depending on people's life paths. And you can see it with Julia. I just was
Hmm.
thinking about that.
Yeah.
That she literally changed the course of it, and
Yeah.
it kind of created that.
Yeah, she was forced to question things and learn, even though they didn't have like traditional books or anything like that. Because if she didn't go down to mechanical, she would have been probably a nurse with her father and just stayed in that role, grown up to do that, like, because that's what her mom was. But
Yeah.
then she went down and met all these different people who the rest of the silo probably never even got to know or wanted to get to know, and realizes that, oh wait, they have really good character. They're hard workers. Community is important to them. And it did get her to question things and made her realize that she's a leader. Just all these, even though she's the main guy's shadow, she acts more in charge. Everybody listens to her more than she does him.
Yeah. She kind of runs the show. Like, she's the person that knows ultimately. Yeah, so she's a force to be reckoned with, and she's the first one, not surprisingly, that can go beyond that point, beyond the point where everybody dies on the hill on the outside. She does not clean. She rebels against that, so she's the first person to do a lot of stuff, and then ultimately we see that she feels the air running out, and she's able to find another silo. She realizes, oh my gosh, there's another silo out here.
Yeah.
And this silo is it was once the same probably as her silo, but it's been basically almost extinct. It's not like a functioning silo.
Yeah, where they opened the hatch or whatever, and it seemed like there was a rebellion there that just did not go well.
Yeah, everyone started to die at a certain point, and we're still not completely clear as to why. If it was, because people started to think, it sounds like they thought that there was something saying like, oh, this is a myth or something, this air or whatever, which is kind of, I actually thought that too at some point. So it's almost kind of like different stages of rebellions, and who knows, we learned there's other silos too out there.
Yeah.
And
What did they say? 52 silos total or something?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and so I don't know, maybe there's various, it's almost kind of like, it seems almost like an experiment, like there's
like somebody's
experiments.
watching, because they have like where Lucas and Sim's wife ended up talking to like the AI person or whatever it was. So it seems like there's either another silo watching them, or some robot, or something is controlling everything, and maybe it's just a weird experiment on humanity.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe it's, as some article I read posited, like, is it just AI? Is this how humanity ends? Is this how, like, humanity ends up being controlled by, AI? That's just a posited theory. I have no idea if that's what it is, but we're probably going to learn more about that in season 3. I just think it's really interesting, all these different points of, societal control and power, hierarchy, collective psychology, right? How you have to be able to have something to function. Everyone has to believe the same things and have it play their roles. Everybody has their own role to play, and they have to like maintain that. You can't imagine somebody being able to call out sick, probably, because then it's just like the silo doesn't function, like I was thinking about that. I was like, oh, probably people can't really call out sick.
Well, they can't, like the first woman, like the first woman that you're talking about, the first sheriff's wife, she would call in sick, but you'd have to pay credits. It almost like you'd have to pay to call in sick.
Yeah.
You have to give credits.
Like it's a lot of sacrifice. Yeah, that's right. She did. Yeah. Yeah. And, and also just kind of saying, well, at what point, I think there's an ultimate question of at what point is there truth and at what point is there order, kind of thing, and what's for the greater good, and what is something where people are just taking power and using it for themselves. And I think that's a question that carries all throughout Silo.
Well, that's what you wonder too. The IT guy, the Tim Robbins, I can't remember his, Bernard or something. He is now like the self-appointed mayor and IT. And so he seems like the power is very important to him. He seems like he's in it for, like, who can I hurt? What can I control? It's definitely not, it does not seem like it's for the good of the silo. It seems like it's for the good of him.
Yeah. And I do wonder if that's kind of what it, like, in these silo setups, it seems like there has to be, in order for this to run, only very few people who have the power, the knowledge, the control, and the knowledge is the power a lot of the times, and the awareness, and how that ultimately is something that, can get to people's, get to their heads and kind of realize this is the only way I can have any sort of, maybe like, distinguishing myself from everything else in the misery of everything.
Yeah.
And then that can just, kind of topple the whole system of like, is this a, something that's justice for everyone? Is this fair for everyone? And, obviously not, but It kind of highlights the danger of really authoritarian governments or ruling
Yeah.
bodies. But at the same point, you see when everybody is ready to rebel and like kind of run out of the hatch and everything, that's dangerous too,
Right.
possibly. And
Yeah.
so it's tough. It's
Yeah,
tough to
it
have
is.
that
It's like how
balance.
much do they have to, but and I do understand that too, like the need for not, limited information, but it also seems like there could be a balance where people do know a little bit more of the truth. But it's it's difficult, and I know they're probably just trying to shelter them. This is what we've been doing for 140 years. We don't allow anyone to have free thought or really have too much knowledge because for fear that they will want to leave.
Yeah, and they'd want to build their own things. They'd want to have their own control over certain things, knowing that like I could have this. They don't even know what
Hmm.
they can't have or
Right.
what is possible.
Yeah.
Because once you have that, then people want things for themselves. It's not for the greater good,
Yeah.
like constantly the way that this so purely is designed to be.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so it really is for survival for that. But at the same point, people are individuals. They're going to want to know things. They're going to want to feel things. They're going to want to have things. And I think that's the biggest struggle that we see
Yeah.
throughout. But with Julia, we see that she just kind of she wants truth and she wants things to be, I think, fair, and
Hmm.
so I think that is something that is different and that stands out
Yeah.
as, the protagonist, the main character person. And she has, I mean, she really has like a strength like no other when she gets into the other silo and she wants to go down into the with the kind of scuba diving equipment that she rigs up with
Yeah.
Solo.
Yeah.
I'm just like, holy crap, that is frightening. And that
Oh,
water is probably gross and icky and
yeah.
dirty. And it icks me out. I mean,
Well, and especially she had mentioned in the other silo what a fear of water that she had because she
hmm
wouldn't be able to go down all the rope all the way like George did because she's like, oh my gosh, it's water. You don't know how deep it is. You don't know what it is. We've never seen water this big. And so then she's going into it in Solo's silo, Solo silo. It's just as deep, just as dark, but she's like, I need to do this. I have to get this helmet. I need to get you know, I need to go in. And so she works through her fear and her anxiety.
Yeah. And it really, I mean, you can see that she really is, she is ultimately, I think, working for the greater good for people to be able to see this and to know this. This is not a selfish need, but she is kind of pushing the boundaries for
Hmm.
that. Like she just
Yeah.
knows that there's something more going on.
Yeah.
And yeah, it really does freak me out though when she runs out of air or stops suddenly and then she gets pulled up to the surface or she has to
Yeah.
go up to the surface really quick and that part freaks me out. Yeah, but it really is, I think this is a really interesting show, a series where it's going to continue on. We don't know for how many seasons yet, but there is going to be another season. So if you like, talking about sci-fi and there's kind of this
Hmm.
social psychology slash
Yeah.
weird psychological elements that are built in with like political kind of undertones. This
Yeah.
is definitely a really
Yeah.
good series to
Dystopia.
watch.
Yeah, and it does have like Tanya and I were talking before too. It's like has so many different tenets with psychological. Like, you have people have like the disorder that they talk about but it's probably just like a lot of anxiety, like where they get the shaky hands and
Oh, the
you have
syndrome,
the
yeah.
syndrome. Yeah. And you have family dynamics, you have, you know, groupthink, collectivism, like you have the government, you have, like a lot of different, and it's interesting too, because they really can't talk about their psychological issues. They can't talk about their anxiety or their depression or their fears because
No,
then
there's
that,
no room for it.
yeah, it's, so they just have to kind of work through it or just act like it's not there.
Yeah. It's very much, it gets very repressed and then it comes out in like tics and spasms and
Yeah.
Billings, Sheriff Billings, I think it is, that he has the syndrome and he's trying to hide it because you can't have you get stigmatized if you
Right.
have that.
Yeah.
Almost like mental health,
Yeah.
right? Like you don't there's no room for it in this system at all to have individual symptoms towards this. You just need to keep functioning.
Mhm.
You just need to keep the silo functioning. You
Right.
need to do your job. You need to,
Yeah.
so that gets very much kind of like weeded out as like you can't show that if you have
Mhm.
it, even though of course people are going to have
Yeah.
anxiety and depression and mental health concerns. But yeah, so that was definitely a very interesting thing. The way they call it the syndrome,
Mhm.
is
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting too with him. His syndrome disappeared once he started to almost when he started to go down to mechanical and he started to realize like there's something bigger than me. I need to start questioning stuff. And that's when he noticed and his wife is like, wait a minute, you're not shaking. So it was like almost like that putting that energy somewhere else helped his anxiety.
yeah. Yeah, being able to see something more, like I think to have his anxiety validated and his stress of like there's something not right here
Right.
as a human being and I can't voice this. I can't make this known, but it is going to come out
Right.
in these symptoms, and so that's kind of ultimately the biggest repression of mental health symptoms, which that I think is at the core of everything. But yeah, so this is one of Aaron, you introduced me to this. I
Oh,
know
I did?
you
Oh,
watched
okay.
it with your husband and
Yeah,
it
and,
was,
and the kids, yeah, my kids, it's a family show. We love it. It's yeah, it's really it's a good show.
yeah, it definitely is something that has a lot of interesting themes to it that can be, if you're into, it's not even necessarily just sci-fi stuff. It's more because it gets described as sci-fi, but like Aaron said, like dystopian, and
Yeah.
very much I think there's a lot of social psychology
Oh
and
yeah, and
psychology
government and
elements in there. Yeah.
yeah, it's lot of stuff you could even though it's 140 years in the future, it's still pretty present day stuff too that you can take away.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think we're just going to find out even more about the origins, which I'm excited for
Yeah.
season 3. But yeah, so I am to come up to our question. This is more of I don't know if it's
Okay.
a
I
fun
look forward to
question, but
these. I like them.
the question that I have is if you had to live in the silo, what level do you think you would want to live in? Because we have discussed that the down deep is kind of more real,
Yeah.
even though people do look down and kind of, look at this as like the untouchables or whatever, there's not very much respect. They have a lot more freedom and a lot more awareness
Mhm.
of knowledge, but
Yeah.
we're, and the higher up is kind of more the educated and then kind of like government kind of, like in professional
Yeah.
careers, kind of that type of thing.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I wonder if being in that silo, if you don't have the crushing feeling of claustrophobia, like I just wonder, like, does it feel open, or do you feel like, oh my gosh, I just like, does it feel like you're on a cruise ship forever, or
That's what I was thinking. It does feel very claustrophobic.
yeah? So I think I would want to somehow get a job where all the plants and everything, because that seems like the most open. So where they had all the gardens and the apple trees and cows, I would want to figure out how I can be on that level because that feels the least claustrophobic for me.
I like that, and that'd probably be really healthy too. You wouldn't
Yeah,
feel like, you get
you'd
some
fresh
light.
air.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you need to have access to that and be closer to that. That's
Yeah,
actually really good.
yeah, because every
Yeah.
other thing, because when you see their little tiny apartments and everything else, gosh, and it just seems so. Except Walker's little studio, it's even though she doesn't leave it for 25 years, it feels more open than everyone else. But yeah, it's just I don't think I'd be able to live way down. I just thinking like, oh my gosh, what if everything fell on top of me? But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a doomsday. But I just the idea of being claustrophobic. But I guess once you're born in it, you don't really know anything else. You probably don't have claustrophobia.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because there were generations that were born
Yeah.
into it. Yeah.
What about you? Where would you want to live?
I like your point about that with being near the plants and like being more, it would feel more open. I was originally thinking I would probably want to be in the middle
Hmm.
somewhere because I think I would not want to be up towards the top where there's more. I feel like you're closer to the government and they can kind of like survey you a little bit
Yeah.
more. But I think there's probably some resources that you'd have access to being in the middle, but you'd also be far enough away from the like eye of the government kind of
Yeah.
things. Kind of like maybe a little bit more strategic, like
Hmm.
in terms of just the levels,
Yeah.
maybe.
And the middle looks a little more fun. But when you see them walking down, it always seems like the middle section, like it's decorated a little bit more fun. The market is there. It just seems a little more lively and less brown and dirty and just
Yeah. Yeah, it's more like they have like more events and like the celebration of like the Founders Day or
yeah.
whatever. It's always kind of there. Yeah. It's kind of like the general like populace, I think. They're just like, yeah. So I think that would probably be like just kind of as like a safe spot. That'd probably be where I'd gravitate.
Yeah. Well, we can visit each other because I'd probably be a few floors up from you.
Yeah, that'd be yeah. I think I just wouldn't want the government on my butt too much,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
don't know. But yeah. So let us know where you would if you've seen this. There's a lot of spoilers in this. We're gonna have to
Yeah.
put that
We'll
because I
have to
didn't say
write
that at the
spoiler,
beginning.
spoiler, spoiler. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a really great show. It really takes, I think, a lot to kind of just invest in it, but like it's worth it. Like you
Hmm.
get really like I was really sucked in
Yeah.
like from the first episode. I think it
Yeah.
was pretty good. But let us know what you think about it. What level you would see yourself as, if you can even picture that, because once you see these things, you might be like, no, just not going to do that.
I would be curious what the very top level looks like because they don't show that. Like, or is that where the IT is? Like very top floor.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I know that the Juliet's father is a doctor and he's kind of on one of the higher levels. Like
Right.
when she first sees him, like, or somebody visits him, like you kind of see a little bit of it and you kind of are like, okay, there's a lot of like professionals up here, quote unquote,
Right.
people that are needed, in terms of like those professions a lot,
Right.
but we don't really get a sense of that. So I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I also feel like my instinct is to go towards like the place where there's the exit. I don't know. And that of course that's just me thinking that now and not
So you would
obviously
want to
living
go
in the
outside.
silo. I think that would be my like I'm always like when I go to a hotel room, I always want to sleep on the side where there's like it's like closer to the door to
Yeah,
be
that's
like,
where I
okay, I
am
can run
too.
out
Yeah.
kind of thing. So I don't know.
Hmm.
But yeah, let us know what you think. This was definitely really something that we enjoyed, and we will be we look forward to anything that you want to let us know, anything that we left out. Follow us on our socials. You know them by now at Wicked Psychotherapists and the Wicked Psychotherapists for Facebook.
And we now have YouTube.
And we now have YouTube. That's right.
And
Yes.
it's
So check
Wicked
us out
Psychotherapists on YouTube also.
if you want to see my tired face and
Yeah.
just
See me
go
sleep
over
because
there.
I can't make eye contact. My eyes can't stay open. I mean, I'm awake, but for some reason when I'm on video, it's like, what the hell? So
The eyes do their own
yeah,
thing.
they don't know
Yeah.
what to do.
But yeah, so this was good. But let us know. Give us any comments, any suggestions for future episodes. We always love that. And don't forget, stay wicked.
And keep your mind well. All right. Have a great week. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.